Newsfirst at 9. Headlines.
A very good evening and welcome. This is Primetime News at 9. I'm Ramesh Rugal Bandara from the Newsfirst newsroom with your headlines for tonight. First up, a resolution on Sri Lanka tabled at the US Congress. Also making headlines tonight, a statement, my decision to visit Sri Lanka was not aimed at criticizing the country. A statement by US Ambassador at Large for Global Women's Issues, Catherine M. Russell. President Mahinda Rajapaksa announces that the next Diatikula exhibition will be held in the southern province next year. Also making headlines, 60 beggars arrested in Colombo and put into rehabilitation. Finally, UPFA candidate for the Southern Provincial Council election, Ajit Prasanna, ordered to be placed in remand custody. We have the details of these stories and much more. Let's now cross over to the main news studio for the news at 9.
Thanks very much, Ramesh. And for the rest of the news bulletin, you'll be here with me, Madhushka Balasurya.
And with me, Stephanie Lazarus. Let's start off with the top story tonight.
Now, a resolution on Sri Lanka has been presented to the US Congress by the Republican Senator of North Carolina, Richard Burr. The resolution 348, titled Expressing Support for the Internal Rebuilding, Resettlement and Reconciliation within Sri Lanka that are necessary to ensure a lasting peace, is co-sponsored by Senators Robert Casey, Patrick Leahy, Sherrod Brown, Barbara Boxer and John Cornyn.
The resolution presented in the Senate on February 6th calls on the US and the international community to establish an independent international accountability mechanism to evaluate reports of war crimes, crimes against humanity and other human rights violations committed by both sides during and after the war in Sri Lanka. The government of Sri Lanka has also been urged by the US Congress to end its media restrictions, including the obstacles to the flow of information in the north and east, and bring to justice those responsible for attacks on journalists and newspaper officers. Finally, the resolution has called upon the President to develop a comprehensive policy towards Sri Lanka that reflects United States interests, including respect for human rights, democracy and the rule of law, economic interests and security interests. At the 22nd session of the United Nations Human Rights Council, the United States moved a resolution on Sri Lanka which was backed by many states and adopted subsequently. The sixth recommendation of the resolution reads as follows. Quote, requests the Office of the High Commissioner with input from relevant special procedures mandate holders as appropriate to present an oral update to the Human Rights Council at its 24th session and a comprehensive report followed by discussion on the implementation of the resolution at its 25th session. Unquote. An oral statement was made by Flavia Pansieri, Deputy to the United Nations Human Rights High Commissioner Navi Pillai, in September on behalf of Pillai at the 24th session. During a packed media briefing in Colombo recently convened under the auspices of Nisha Biswal, United States Assistant Secretary of State for South and Central Asian Affairs, a journalist questioned the basis in which the upcoming resolution is being tabled by the US without having a discussion on the implementation of the present resolution passed in March last year.
We look forward to the written report of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. And we are very concerned about the findings presented in her oral report, which corroborate our own understandings based on the many conversations we have had with many individuals and organizations in this country and organizations. It is because we have had clear expectations delineated in prior years about our hopes and expectations for implementation of the recommendations of the LLRC and the lack of progress against those recommendations that we feel that we must go before the Human Rights Council once again and seek a resolution to underscore our mounting concern.
It is very clear that the United States has not sought to even wait for the High Commissioner's report, which is due before the March session, in informing the government of Sri Lanka that and other member countries that they are going to move a resolution. It has been pointed out by the government of Sri Lanka that this is a prejudiced judgment which has no basis because the High Commissioner's report is not out, and that there is prejudgment of Sri Lanka's position and developments.
In light of the upcoming US-sponsored resolution on Sri Lanka calling for an international inquiry, the Australian government recently refused to back an independent international investigation into alleged human rights violations during the final stages of the war. Australia is not a member of the UNHRC but co-sponsored the two previous resolutions calling for action by Sri Lanka in 2012 and 2013, but would join the Human Rights Council in 2018. Britain and Canada have already called for an international inquiry, stating that Sri Lanka has failed to heed to two US-sponsored resolutions.
Welcome back to the news. President Mahinda Rajapaksa says the next That Kerala program will be held in the southern province next year. The president made this statement during an event held to inaugurate construction of the Alpitia-Pittigala road.
Renovation activities on a number of roads commenced today under the auspices of President Mahinda Rajapaksa, and the renovations are taking place in accordance with the Mahinda Chintanaya vision for the future. The Pittigala-Palavatta road, which was constructed at a cost of 1.08 billion rupees, was vested in the public by President today. The 8-kilometre stretch of road includes 3 key bridges. Renovation work on the Pittigala-Alpitia road, which is being built at a cost of 1,484 million rupees, also began under the auspices of the President. President Rajapaksa did not forget to engage in a cordial discussion with the residents that gathered at the location.
US Ambassador at Large for Global Women's Issues Catherine M. Russell, who is on a tour of South Asia, attended a live video conference from Kathmandu, Nepal. She stated that her attempt to visit Sri Lanka was not aimed at criticizing the country.
The message I'd hope to bring to your country is the same message I've been charged by President Obama to carry to all corners of the world, that peace, prosperity, and economic growth can only be achieved with the full participation of women. That's why we all must find common cause in advancing women's political and economic participation, ending gender-based violence and human trafficking, and reducing rates of maternal and child mortality that prevent women and girls from realizing their full potential. Some might have viewed my desire to visit Sri Lanka as an effort to criticize, but let me assure you that was certainly not my intention. The United States is deeply committed to assisting Sri Lanka, and we appreciate the areas where we've been able to cooperate.
UPFA Southern Provincial Council candidate Ajit Prasanna, who was arrested on charges of obstructing the duties of a policeman, was placed in remand custody till tomorrow. The order was issued by the 4th Magistrate.
Ajit Prasanna was arrested yesterday while receiving treatment at a private hospital in Colombo. 4th Magistrate Thilina Gamage, who arrived at the hospital today, inspected the condition of the candidate and ordered that he be placed in remand custody until tomorrow. The magistrate ordered that the suspect be produced before the 4th Magistrates Court with a medical report. Ajit Prasanna was arrested on charges related to acting in an unruly manner and assaulting a police officer on the day on which nominations were handed in. Meanwhile, the police has decided to summon Secretary of the Navasama Samaja Party, Dr. Vikramabahu Karunaratna, in order to inquire into an incident where false information was furnished in a nomination list handed in by the party. According to a release issued by the police media spokesperson, the lawyer and Justice of Peace who ratified the nomination list have also been summoned to the Gampaha police tomorrow. Police investigations have revealed that the names and addresses of the 15 individuals mentioned in the nomination list are false, and that some persons mentioned in the list do not even exist. Still in local news, the United People's Freedom Alliance convened a media briefing in Colombo today.
ඉල්ලීමක් කරනවා සන්ධානයේ සියලුම අපේක්ෂකයන්ගෙන් සියලුම ආධාරකරුවන්
We are requesting all the alliance candidates and supporters to engage in election propaganda activities in accordance with election laws. Do not destroy and litter the beautiful streets that have been created in this country. Engage in environmental friendly politics. This is a request that we are making from all the candidates.
පරිසරයට ආදරය කරන දේශපාලනයක් කරන්න කියලා. අපි හැම අපේක්ෂකයෙක්ගේම ඉල්ලීමක් කරනවා.
අද දවස් වෙනකොට සියලුම අපේක්ෂකයින්ගේ වත්කම් බැරකම් ප්‍රකාශ
The United People's Freedom Alliance has already submitted the assets and liability declarations of all its candidates. We will not intervene or speak against the officers of the law. The alliance will not intervene. If something has been written on the road, cover it up with tarp. We have no issue. We have taken all measures needed for an election in accordance with the instructions of the Elections Commissioner.
මැතිවරණ කොමසාරිස්තුමාගේ උපදෙස් අනුව පවත්වා ගැනීම සඳහා සියලු කටයුතු සූදානම්.
A number of such beggars in Peta, Colombo were arrested by the police last night.
Yes, after being produced before the Colombo Fort Magistrate, the arrested beggars were directed to the detention centre in Ridiyagama, Ambalantota.
A total of 60 beggars, inclusive of 3 underage children, were arrested in an operation launched in the Peta area last night. According to the police, the beggars were arrested for engaging in antisocial activities.
Colombo Environmental Protection Unit conducted a special operation last night in the Colombo city along with the local police of Peta and Fort in order to apprehend beggars in the area where they are involved in many criminal activities as well as the drug dealing. There had been information that the beggars in the Colombo city are pretending as beggars, but they involved in criminal activities and antisocial and activities in respect of antisocial behavior. Therefore, we arrested 32 beggars and 7 female beggars from Fort and Victoria Park area, and they will be produced before the magistrate today, and they will be fingerprinted, and in addition to that, photographs will be taken. Thereafter, they will be remanded in a safe house in Ridiyagama area. So we need to conduct further investigation regarding their involvement, whether they are involved in any criminal activities or other drug dealing.
The police note that they will take steps to photograph the arrested beggars and obtain their fingerprints prior to launching extensive investigations. Meanwhile, Newsfirst was able to capture these visuals of beggars continuing to carry out their activities in the Colombo area. This is the general public's opinion on beggars.
හිඟන්නේ බස් එක නැගලා වාහන එක නැගලා තට්ටු කරලා අනිතර බාධා කරනවා නම් රජයක් අහකවලනවා නම් ඒක රජයට තමයි දොස් වෙන්නේ.
ඒ මිනිස්සු ජීවත් වෙන්න නැති පෑ නේද?
ඔය හිඟන අයගෙන් කිසිම සෙතක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ, සංවර්ධනයක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ, රටට සතපහක දඩන්නේ නැහැ.
මේ පාරේ ඉන්නේ හිඟන්නෝ අයින් කරා කියලා රටේ ආර්ථිකය සමෘද්ධිමත් වෙන්නේවත් ඒකට විකල්පයක්වත් නෙමෙයි.
According to the research carried out by Professor Nandasena Ratnapala, around 55,000 beggars were present in the country during the 70s. Professor Mayura Samarakon of the Sri Javadhanpura University notes that this number has risen sharply since then.
People who are feeble and elderly, who have no one to tend for them, are those who turn into beggars. If this group of people are to be rehabilitated, their issues should be solved. So justifiable solutions need to be given not within a legal framework, but in accordance with a social framework. A social experiment needs to be prepared, and the answer should be minimization.